Imagine you're just a regular guy, insecure, awkward, and invisible to most girls. Until one day, out of nowhere, the most beautiful girl you've ever seen wants to date you. Sounds amazing, right? Well, today we're going to explain the movie She's Out of My League, released in 2010, so grab your popcorn because a spicy, awkward, and surprisingly sweet story is coming up. The movie opens with Kirk Kettner, a regular average guy working as airport security. Kirk is still hung up on his ex-girlfriend Marnie. They've been on a break, but Kirk desperately wants her back. He's so determined that he's practicing a speech in front of his friends, hoping to win her over. But his friends aren't exactly supportive. In fact, they can't help but mock him for being so hung up on Marnie. His best friend, Stainer, is especially blunt. He tells Kirk he hates Marnie and hopes they stay broken up for good. A few hours later, Kirk finally meets up with Marnie, hoping for a second chance. But things don't go as planned. Marnie is already dating someone new, a guy named Ron, who, as Kirk soon finds out, owns an off-brand Pizza Hut business. Kirk tries to get Ron out of the room so he can talk to Marnie alone, but the conversation doesn't go well. Marnie tells Kirk that Ron is more successful than he is, even if his business is a knockoff. Kirk tries to win her over with a gift, an earring holder with her picture engraved on it, but Marnie rejects the gift, leaving Kirk feeling even more defeated. The next day, Kirk is back at his job as airport security. While working, he notices a beautiful woman standing in line to board a plane. Her name is Molly, and she immediately stands out to Kirk. As she's going through security, Kirk's manager, Mr. Fuller, tries to get Molly to go through a strip search, but Kirk steps in and prevents the situation from getting awkward. Molly is grateful for Kirk's help and thanks him, introducing herself before heading to her flight. On the plane, Molly realizes she left her phone at security. Her friend Patty, who is boarding the plane with her, calls Molly's phone and Kirk answers. He tries to return the phone before the plane takes off, but Molly tells him to hold on to it until the next day, as she'll be back in town for a museum event. Kirk, nervous but excited, agrees to keep the phone safe. That night, Kirk tells his friend Devin about what happened with Molly. Kirk is unsure about meeting her again, but Devin encourages him, saying everything will work out. So, Devin goes with Kirk to the museum event. When they arrive, they ask some waitresses if they know where to find Molly. One of the waitresses, Katie, turns out to be Molly's sister and points them in the right direction. Kirk walks over to Molly and returns her phone. He tries to excuse himself and leave, but Molly surprises him by inviting him to stay for a few drinks. Kirk accepts, and for a moment he feels like he's living in a dream. Unfortunately, things take a turn when Kirk accidentally spills his drink on a man who turns out to be the museum's director. As a result, Kirk and Devin are kicked out of the event. But before Kirk leaves, Molly runs after him. She asks him to hang out with her the following day at an Islanders hockey game. Kirk, still in disbelief at his luck, agrees to her offer. The next day at the airport, Stainer and Devin tried to talk Kirk into going out with Molly. Kirk is convinced that Molly is out of his league, but his friends push him to give it a shot. Meanwhile, Marnie tells Kirk that she's taking his place on the family vacation with his parents, and Ron is coming along too. Kirk, surprisingly, doesn't care. He's more focused on his plans with Molly. That night, Kirk brings Stainer with him to meet Molly and Patty at the hockey game. Stainer tries to set himself up with Molly, but when Patty and Kirk are left alone, Patty tells Kirk that Molly is actually into him. Kirk is shocked, but Stainer keeps insisting there's no way Molly likes him. Even though Molly brought Patty to set her up with Stainer, Stainer is more attracted to Molly. Luckily, Molly calls Kirk to ask him out again, which agitates Stainer. The next day, Kirk is still confused about why Molly would want him, but Stainer tells him that he got along with her at the game just fine. A few hours later, Kirk and Molly sit together at dinner, where he learns that Molly used to be a lawyer. However, because of his outfit, he looks like he's part of the staff. When he goes to sit back down, he finds Cam, Molly's ex-boyfriend, sitting in his chair. Luckily, Molly clears the air, and Cam leaves as quickly as he came. After dinner, Kirk gets to know a bit more about Molly's family. He then decides to drive her home, and she kisses him goodnight. The following day, Kirk tells his friends about his successful date with Molly. He also tells them that he invited Molly to have dinner with his parents. His friends expressed their dislike for the idea, saying it's too soon to be meeting the parents. However, when Molly comes over to his house, Kirk's parents are mesmerized by her beauty. Later at dinner, Molly sits down with his family, where they ask her all types of inappropriate questions. When Marnie first sees Molly, she decides to get all dressed up, since Ron is flirting with her. Kirk's dad tries to ask Molly what she likes in Kirk, and she replies that he makes her laugh. Kirk's dad then invites Molly to join them on the family vacation. Despite Marnie's protests, Molly agrees to their offer. Marnie also tells Molly that she and Kirk used to date, but Molly doesn't react to it. Later, Molly spends time with Kirk's family, where they play hockey in their basement. At night, Molly takes Kirk back to her apartment and tries to make out with him. However, Kirk's inexperience causes him to finish quickly. Unfortunately, Molly's parents show up at her house with Katie, which forces Kirk to hide the stain in his pants. Luckily, he manages to run out of the apartment before anyone can notice his suspicious behavior. The following day, Kirk is embarrassed as his friends bully him for his inexperience. Marnie decides to tell Kirk that she'd like to date him again, but Kirk tells her that he has real feelings for Molly. However, ever since the previous night's incident, Molly hasn't been answering his calls. Stainer then tells him it was too good to be true. Meanwhile, Devin gives him the courage he needs to win her back. A few days later, Kirk goes with his friends, Stainer and Jack, to an event that Molly is organizing. Molly is still hurt that Kirk didn't spend enough time with her family, but Kirk finally tells her the truth. He only left because he was embarrassed after what happened at her apartment. Molly believes him, and things seem to be back on track between them. But just as things are looking up, Cam, Molly's ex-boyfriend, shows up again. He tries to get into Kirk's head, saying he doesn't believe that Kirk and Molly are really together. Cam even tells Kirk that he has a plan to win Molly back. This only makes Kirk feel more insecure. Despite this, Kirk and Molly continue to go on dates, and people around them keep congratulating Kirk for being with someone like Molly. However, Kirk still hasn't gotten over his earlier embarrassing incident. Jack, one of Kirk's friends, tells him to take care of his body so he won't feel insecure when the time comes. Kirk tries to shave his body hair but fails, so he brings in Devin to help him out, which actually works. Later, Molly organizes a birthday party for her sister Katie. The party is a big success, but Kirk has to face Molly's parents again and apologize for being rude the first time he met them. Everything seems to be going well until Cam shows up uninvited. He tries to get into Kirk's head again, telling him that Molly isn't as perfect as she seems and pressuring him to admit it. Cam tells Kirk to figure it out for himself. That night, at Molly's apartment, things between Molly and Kirk get heated as they start to undress, but Kirk's insecurities start to show. He's so focused on his own flaws that he can't relax. To make him feel better, Molly decides to show him something she's insecure about. She has webbed toes. Kirk is baffled that this is the only thing wrong with her. Unfortunately, they get into a fight because Kirk isn't treating Molly like a real person, just like Cam warned. Molly confesses that she started dating Kirk because she thought he wouldn't treat her like that. In the end, Kirk leaves her apartment and they break up. A few days later, Kirk and his family are going on vacation. He's trying to get over his breakup with Molly by rebounding with Marnie, but it's clear he's not happy with her. Meanwhile, Stainer realizes that the reason his own girlfriend broke up with him was because he didn't think he was good enough for himself. Stainer decides to talk to Kirk on the plane and encourages him to get back with Molly. Unfortunately, Stainer can't get Kirk off the plane, so he calls Patty to help bring Kirk and Molly back together. Meanwhile, before the plane is about to take off, Kirk realizes he doesn't want to leave Molly behind. But he's unable to get off the plane because the crew has already locked the cabin doors. On the other hand, Patty drives Molly to the airport so she can catch Kirk's plane before it leaves. Stainer helps Molly get through security, but when they arrive at the gate, they find out the plane has already departed. Stainer calls Jack and tells him to stop the plane. Luckily, Jack manages to buy them enough time for maintenance, which means all the passengers have to exit the plane. As soon as Kirk gets off, he starts to run for the exit, but Marnie tries to force him back onto the plane. Kirk calls Stainer and finds out that Molly is waiting for him at the gate. Kirk tries to apologize to Molly for putting her on a pedestal, but she interrupts him and says she doesn't care about any of his insecurities. She just wants to be with him. Kirk forgives her for what she said, and finally, he fully grasps the idea that he and Molly are meant for each other. They share a passionate kiss. It may have taken Kirk a bit longer to realize it, but as people say, better late than never. Kirk and Molly end up together, proving that sometimes love really is out of your league, until you believe you belong. I hope you enjoyed this recap. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe if you're new. And as always, stay well, stay safe, and thanks for watching.